Good afternoon and good evening to our audience from all around the world to this seventh edition of the amazing leadership webinar series, where we are speaking to eminent leaders across the travel and hospitality space on their journeys, views on the current crisis, and how do they see the future unfold. This is your host, Apurv Chamaria, Chief Revenue Officer at RateGain, and joining me is Mr. Sidharth Gupta, who's the co-founder of Treebo Hotels. We are delighted to host Sid for this fireside chat, which has seen more than 750 registrations. Prior to starting Treebo in 2015, Sid used to head strategy for Myntra, the fashion e-commerce arm of Flipkart. Before that, Sid was a consultant with McKinsey & Company for nearly 6 years. Sid is an alumnus of the prestigious IIT Roorkee and IIM Bangalore. Treebo is a very interesting chain. It's one of the leading and most loved hotel brands in the budget segment. Treebo describes itself as a technology-led asset-light player that works on the franchise model. And we're going to ask Sid, what does that mean later? Treebo offers higher revenues and profits to asset owners and guarantees quality at affordable prices to consumers. Through its relentless focus on guest experience and sustainable economics, Treebo has emerged as a successful option despite intense competition and a lot of capital being utilized in this space. Treebo today has about 600 plus properties and 15,000 keys under its brand. Treebo has recently also launched a SaaS business under the brand name Hotel Superhero, where it provides a comprehensive suite of technology solutions to small independent hotels and chains. So Sid, a very, very warm welcome to you. And I know these are very trying times. So thank you for taking the time out to speak to us and the audience.
Thank you for having me, Apurva. It's a pleasure to be here amongst friends from the industry. Indeed, these are trying times for everyone, but I'm glad that the situation is giving us this unique opportunity to connect through these webinars. And thank you to RateGain for hosting these. Looking forward to today's discussion.
Sid, I've always been intrigued by the name Treebo. What does it mean? What is the genesis? I quizzed my team and they couldn't get the right answer.
Well, then clearly we have not done a good enough job of talking about this story more. I would have liked at least some people to know. So, Purva, Treebo name indeed is an unusual name. It's actually a flip on the word bow tree.
Wow.
Which is the tree under which Gautam Buddha meditated. So the story is that when we were starting this business and when we decided that we wanted to do something in the budget segment of hospitality, our thought and our inspiration came from these giant trees, the banyan trees, fig trees, which in many ways in ancient times used to be the first example of a budget hotel, really, where people could rest overnight, meet fellow travelers, have meaningful conversations, etc. So we were somewhat inspired by that, and we wanted our name to reflect that. And and we started with bow tree, and then we thought we'll flip it to make it Treebo, because there were already multiple brands out there in hospitality with tree as
banyan tree and others.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's the little of the story.
And I've had the fortune of staying at some of your hotels, and I can say it is truly a place where battle-hardened travelers find a good, comfortable budget accommodation. So it's been a fascinating journey. In a very short span of 5 years, you've grown to 600 plus hotels. And I'm sure you and your leadership team take a lot of pride in it. I know as industry people, we take a lot of pride in it, in enjoying your success. What are some of the key milestones which Fibo has crossed in these 5 years, and things which, when you look back, which really make you feel good about the impact you're creating?
So, we recently completed 5 years as a company. We went live with our first hotel on 20th June 2015, so just turned 5. And I think what I am most in terms of the milestones of the company, in hindsight, I don't think I would have said that when I was, going through those periods. But I would say what I'm looking back, what I'm most proud about and what probably marks our 5 years is the fact that in each of these 5 years, we have faced some or the other major crisis. We are truly a battle-hardened company, and we have not had a single year of our existence where we have not had a major crisis. And in many of those situations, there have been some external circumstances that we have been fighting. The 2015, 2016 was all about establishing ourselves and getting people to trust us, asset partners in particular, for them to trust us with our brand and with our sales and marketing machinery. And then in 2017 and 2018, we've had unfortunate relationship fallouts with some of the biggest OTAs in the country. We have had, of course, massive competitive intensity in 2018 again, where the competition really became more of a battle, and it was pretty intense. And 2019 we were about to raise a substantial sum of money from a marquee investor, and that kind of fell apart. And all of these are publicly known milestones. So I have no talk about these milestones with a sense of pride, and I use these crises as milestones, is because I've realized in hindsight that nothing shapes your business and nothing shapes you as individuals more than crises do. And it's kind of pertinent for us to probably be talking about crisis when we're in the middle of another one now. But I really think that whenever you're looking at the history of a business or of any individual, there's always the true story that comes out when you look at the various crises that the company has gone through. And of course, there have been very, very happy moments as well. For example, the time when we reached our first 100 hotels, the time when we came to the top of the ratings table in terms of customer feedback. And all of those have been very gratifying as well. But yeah, I think what we do is hard. And that's the great part of this business. So I won't mind remembering the last 5 years through the crisis that we have lived through and fought hard.
So Sid, you had a fantastic career at McKinsey and Company, which is a dream company, and then at Myntra, where you were leading strategy, and you decided to turn an entrepreneur. So people always say that entrepreneurship is also a journey where you mature over time, and hardships are really what make you come out on your own as an entrepreneur. So how has been your personal journey like? Did you ever have days where you were like, oh my God, what did I get into? And would love to hear your thoughts on this 5-year tremendous journey. And what are the learnings, if any, which young entrepreneurs, young hoteliers who are running their own hotels can take away from your journey?
To be honest, it's been fascinating, Apurva. I don't think there are too many professions out there, too many jobs out there which kind of put you through such a rigorous process of learning like entrepreneurship does. Poses you to not just a wide variety of situations and circumstances which teach you immensely, but also in terms of some of the depths of situation, the depths of opportunities, the depths of crisis that you deal with are fascinating. And I can safely say that I would this journey that I've had for anything else. And I don't think at any point I've had a situation where I've regretted this. That doesn't mean the going has been great. Like I said, if anything, it's been a very, very rocky ride. But it's been an amazing learning experience and a lot of fun and thrill along the way. So I wouldn't trade it for anything. In terms of the learnings, I think there's probably two major learnings, and there's a lot, like I said, that you learn, but probably two learnings that I would value above everything else that I've had. The first one is to really focus on the long term. I think that has been the single most important realization we have had, particularly when going through the ups and downs. when you realize that all good things take time, right? When you look at other companies which are success stories, other brands that have been built, other individuals who have been inspirational individuals, you realize that all of those journeys have panned out over a long period of time. There has obviously been this artificial belief that has been propagated maybe in the last few years, I would say, particularly in the startup world. And I'm part of the same ecosystem, and therefore probably at some level guilty of the same thing in propagating this belief or this hype that things can happen overnight, or that you can grow blitzkrieg, and you can become a loved brand overnight by just spending a lot of money, let's say, or you can get overnight success. My personal learning has been that never happens, right? And as an entrepreneur, or in any other aspect of your life for that matter, there is a huge value in thinking long term and not getting moved one way or the other too much by developments that happen here near in the medium term. And I think that has been a fascinating realization, because the moment you change that lens, that mental lens of thinking, you are suddenly able to be more at peace when you are in difficult times, and you are able to be more humble, more sober when the going is great. And I mean, if you look at examples, the startup world also, if you look at Flipkart, which is of course one of the most amazing success stories from the startup ecosystem that we have seen. People often tend to forget that Flipkart has already been in existence for about 13 years, right? They started in 2007, they got acquired in 2018. Of course, they created tremendous shareholder value in the process. But it took 11 years, right? And they're still at it. They're still going through that journey. They still need to break even, and the work is not done, right? When you look at Taj, which is of course an iconic brand today in our industry, it has taken well over 100 years for that brand to be built to a level where people look at the Tata name or the Taj name and they trust it blindly, right? So I think that's been the biggest realization, that all good things take time and you should focus on the long term. And for us, what that meant, which is the second learning really, is to spend your energy, spend your time and your resources on things that do not seem to pay dividend in the near term. People often hesitate to do that. For example, investing time in building a great culture, helping your own people develop and grow and learn in your organization, developing great customer experiences and being patient till the time people go through those and ignore, tend to kind of short circuit because they don't pay any dividend the moment you do it, right? You see the results of your efforts over several years and not in a few months. And therefore, there is a tendency to ignore these things in the way Radigan is a technology company. You will relate to it in the way you develop your product roadmap, right? There's always a tendency to build things which are here and now, which short-term dividends. But we have learned, we have committed, and a lot of things that have gone well for us, that as an entrepreneur, you really need to focus on the long term and be invested in what you're building for at least 10 years. Nothing good happens in less than 10 years.
Yeah, and you have various examples of it. People talk about 10,000 hours to develop a habit. Very interesting that you speak about 10 years to build something worthwhile. So Sid, when you guys started Treebo, initially, you're always fighting gravity, which is which is resisting, and which is stopping a business from taking off. So how hard is it to get your first couple of hotels, first good talent, and would love to get your thoughts and how did you guys crack that?
Again, there were no easy answers, Purvan, and we did probably what anyone else starting a new business would do. When it started off, it was just me and my co-founders, the three of us. There was no team, there was no hotel, there was no brand name, there was no capital. All that there was this idea, this concept, which we felt very passionately for. And, we literally started with identifying properties where we would start the pitching process, and we were all in Bangalore. And for some weird reason, it's funny how as entrepreneurs you hold on to anything that you can, right? I mean, when you've got nothing, you clutch on straws. And the same was the case with us. For some reason, I thought that, hey, because I'm Bangalore, maybe I should start my BD process from the I am Bangalore vicinity area, the Bannerghatta Road area or the BTM layout area, because maybe if that hotel comes on board, I can go and pitch to I am Bangalore and they can give me some of the student demand or the parent demand. It was a vague idea, frankly, right? It had no meaning, but like I said, you clutch on to whatever you can find. So we started looking up those hotels online, and we somehow pitched to them that, sir, we can help you increase your profits. Can we please get some time to see you? And after making some 20 calls, one guy finally agreed to meet us. So me and my co-founder went and met him and, prepared a pretty elaborate presentation. We almost treated it like, a consulting assignment. We knew that we can't do this at scale, right? But we were very clear that in the beginning, we need to do unscalable things just to establish the foundation. You can't worry about scalability from day one. So, we went to this first hotel with our iPad, with a very detailed presentation made on that one hotel. And, it had its TripAdvisor ratings, it had its, booking.com ratings, it had a price comparison and all that jazz to get that guy to, see us credibly. And we went and, met him and presented this whole thing to him. And he threw us out. He immediately threw us out. And he was like, are you kidding me? I don't know you guys. I don't know what Treebo is. That name is a weird one, first of all. I don't care about the fact that you went to I am Bangalore or IIT Roorkee or whatever, right? And because that's the only thing we were pitching. How can I trust my hotel to strangers? You are saying that I should allow you to do sales and marketing for my property. Why will I do that? How can I trust you? And, this thing repeated for 4, 5, 6 hotels, 10 hotels. And then finally, there was this one gentleman who heard us patiently. There was a property in Kormangla who heard us patiently and, who sat through the whole pitch and he didn't say a word. And at the end of it, he just said, this sounds good. This looks interesting. Okay, tell me what do I have to do next? I want to work with you guys. And we couldn't believe it because no one had ever kind of said those words to us. And we were over the top, obviously. And, we said, we quickly put together a contract. And then me and my co-founder showed up at the hotel and we were inspecting. Next thing we know, we were inspecting the bathrooms. We were inspecting the WC. We were checking whether there is, all the cleaning chemicals available or not. We were checking all air conditioning and we were doing the full pre-opening inspection ourselves. And it was fun. It was tremendous learning. We are not people who come from hotel management background. So it was all very new for us. But yeah, I mean, the same thing happened with the first employee. I reached out to, an ex-colleague from McKinsey to see if they wanted to work with us, if he wanted to work with us. And again, he politely told me, he said, like, why do you think I will leave my job at McKinsey and come work for a startup? But, I have this brother of mine who is looking to work at a startup. If you want, I can tell him about Treebo. I said, please do. And his brother became our very first employee. And our very first office was my home in Bangalore. The point I'm trying to make, I guess, and, when I'm thinking about these experiences, I'm reminded indeed of those times. And I guess when you're starting up, there are no cushy answers. There is nothing to hold on to. And you really have to just fire a few bullets in the dark and see what hits. And of course, luck plays a very important role. Like in this case, I reached out to this guy. He didn't want to join us, but his brother came on board. And he's a very senior guy today. He's still with us. He's older than the company itself. So yeah, I think you've just got to go out there and put your best foot forward and good things come your way. They take time, but they come your way.
Very well said. And I think that's something which all of us should remember. So Sid, we both are from the same industry and all the audiences in the industry. So when did you first think that, because a lot of people we spoke to, actually even me, we didn't realize how big and how deep is going to be the impact of COVID on us personally and our companies. So when did the enormity of the impact sink in, where you and your management team and sat and said, my God, like this is going to hit us hard? And what did you do as, first steps uh, to, prepare for this crisis?
So I think our moment of awakening was probably similar to everyone else's, right? I mean, while there were early signs that something might go wrong in January and February itself, when we looked at what was happening in China, I think it wasn't until the second week of March that we started to see the impact coming closer home. And I think the early signs were, a spike in cancellations, some of our corporate customers backing out of some bulk bookings that they had done, and in general, people expressing concern around employee safety. Some state governments, including Karnataka, were early movers in terms of announcing lockdowns, and that started impacting people's plans as well. So I think it was indeed around mid-March that we started to see that something was going wrong, and we are going to be engulfed in that COVID wave ourselves that already hit the far east of the world. Um, and I think the first reaction, of course, was to quickly convene a meeting of our management team and to take stock of situation in terms of what everyone is seeing in their respective parts of the business. And it became quite clear that we are headed into a crisis. And I think our first reaction was really to just quickly start looking for alternate sources of revenue and alternate sources of cash. That was our immediate response. And of course, we also were clear that we will need to get ready to curtail our expenses as well. But I would say that came second. The first reaction was, okay, look, our booking values are gonna crash, and the book build is already looking very, very grim. So let's start looking at alternate sources of revenue. And of course, we took a bunch of pricing actions to see if lower prices would help, only to realize that was not going to be the case. And we started ideating, and over the next couple of months, then we launched a few initiatives which were all meant to shore up our sources of revenue and cash. In fact, we were very clear that we need to think in terms of cash, not necessarily profits or revenue only, because in crises of these proportions, cash becomes the biggest asset. I mean, that's the one thing you can hold on to. So we launched things like something we called as Treebo Magic Vouchers, which was basically pre-sales voucher, and then a lot of our friends in the industry did the same later on, where we were basically offering these vouchers for 999 rupees, and they could be redeemed for any Treebo at any point in time for the next 6 to 9 months. And that was a huge saving for the customer. So that started to kind of bring some cash.
So for any ADR, even if it was like 4,000 rupees, you could redeem
into the company. Yeah. And see, we were clear we had to make it attractive, right? People were naturally going to have a lot of hesitation in buying these vouchers because they were unclear about their own plans. So we had to make it a no-brainer for people. And we debated a lot whether there should be different tiers and there should be some restrictions, etc. But we said, hey, look, either we will not do this at all, or if we do, let's really kind of go out there and be clear that we are doing it to get some near-term cash into the company. And therefore, it was really positioned as a very, very attractive product. And it did reasonably well also. We launched a long stay product where we went to our corporates and said, hey, look, some of your people are stranded. So, why don't you book these long stay bookings for them? We went to, I think the entire industry is aware that, some of the ITS where they were making their employees work from hotels rather than working from home because of the natural limitations in working from home for several employees. So we as well. So these were some of the things. And of course, the quarantine demand, talking to various local city corporations, government bodies, hospitals to see if we can provide quarantine facilities through our hotels. So we did all of these to quickly shore up our revenues. And then, of course, we took a bunch of steps to cut down our costs as well, to get to a place where we realized that this is going to take long. So, we need to be on a P&L, which we can really sustain with the cash that we have. So that was the thinking.
So, Sid, are you seeing, most hotels we spoke to say that April was rock bottom and now they've started seeing some kind of recovery? It could be because of coupons, it could be alternate avenues of revenue like food delivery, or even letting out their hotels to people who want to go there and work. So, would love to understand your perspective on what is the recovery you are seeing inside Treebo, and what are some of the strategies which you are now deploying to ramp up and try to get back to 60, 70, 80% in the next 6-7 months?
So let me start with the bad news, Apurva. I don't think personally that we are going to get to 60, 70, 80% in the next 6-7 months as an industry. I don't see that happening. As difficult as it might be, I think it's important to work with a very objective realization or assessment of what is really the depth of this crisis, right? And at least in all the analysis we have done, in all the data we have seen, and whatever we have heard from experts around the world, we don't believe that this crisis is going away anytime quickly. It's strange. I don't know if there are any Marvel fans in the audience, but in this movie X-Men, there's this line that Professor Charles uses with Magneto when he's trying to teach him how to control his powers. He says, true focus lies at the intersection of rage and serenity, right? And I think it's a little bit of that we need to use right now, which is rage and serenity. I think while of course there is a lot of rage in the way we look at alternate sources of revenue, in the way we try to exercise any and every possible means to bring in some demand through the door. That's the right thing to do, whether it's, like you said, food delivery, whether it's giving out a real estate space. For example, we are working with a startup which is in the space of parking, providing parking spaces to people. I mean, parking in India is obviously a big problem in big cities. So there's a startup in that space. We are working with them to give out the parking space that hotels have. We are working with a lot of food startups to give out our kitchens as cloud kitchens, right? Like I said, for the core hotels business itself, we are going after all of these different use cases of the hotel rooms. So we are doing all of that, and every hotel should do that. Every company should do that. That's the rage part of it, where you refuse to give in to this crisis and you go hammer and tongs after every possible demand, every penny of revenue that you can get. You go after it. That's the right thing to do. That's the rage part of it. But I think there is a serenity part of it as well, which is that you humbly accept the fact that this is not going away quickly, right? You can't fight that realization. You can fight for various sources of revenue, whatever you can manage. But I think it's important to humbly realize that given the situation, of course, a vaccine is under development and we have high hopes that it will come out quickly, but that quickly also is not going to be less than a year, or even if it does happen in less than a year, it will take time before it gets administered and people can travel with the same sense of confidence that they used to travel earlier. I think it's also a mistake that people make in linking the business of hotels to the lockdown. Lockdown is not the thing that is coming in the way of hotels business, right? It's the confidence with which people travel, whether it's B2B travel or B2C travel, right? And unless and until that confidence comes back, that mental peace comes back, you will not see travelers travel at the same frequency, right? So I think it's important for us to realize, because see, one very tangible consequence of having an objective assessment of how deep this crisis and how long this crisis is on your cash planning. So let's say if you have a certain cash reserve and you are thinking, hey, I just need to see through the next 6-7 months, and on the other side of that, I'll be fine, then naturally you will go wrong in the way you do your own resource planning, right? You will think that you will be fine 6-7 months later, but you won't be. And then you will realize that you are in deep shit at the end of those 6-7 months because you've run out of your resources. So yeah, so I think that's something that we are doing, Apurva, that on the one hand we are doing everything possible to get whatever demand through the door we can, and on the other hand, however, we are also very clear this planning has to be with an 18 to 24-month horizon with zero revenue. If it has to be that, it's not zero revenue. To your question, we have also seen recovery. April was indeed rock bottom. May was better than April. June was substantially better than April. Well, in relative scheme of things, not in absolute terms, right? But we are very clear that we should plan in a way that even if we have nearly zero revenue for the next 18 months, we should be able to survive and do well as a company. So that's how we are thinking about recovery.
Very well said, Sid. So, Sid, a lot of people are saying that 10 to 20% of hotels will never reopen again. So what is your message as the co-founder of Treebo to asset owners who are on the call? How should they think about this business, and what should they expect the business to get back to, say, 9-12 months out?
You'll have to excuse me from offering any numbers, Apurva. Anyone who tries to offer a very specific number on 12 months, maybe we'll see 50% and then whatever. I think it's all crystal ball gazing, and I will assume no authority, frankly, in being able to give an estimate which is necessarily going to be an accurate one. If anything, you are probably better placed to give me that estimate than I am. But what I will say to your first part of your question is that, look, it depends entirely on the staying power of asset owners, right? I am very bullish on the long-term prospects of this industry. I don't think travel is going away. I don't think that people will stop traveling. Desire to travel that is now building up inside people for both leisure as well as corporate, which will start coming through as demand once things get better, right? But like I said, things are not probably going to get better for another 1.5, 2 years or so, is my broad assessment. So my simple advice would be that, look, if you are an asset owner who can stay put for the next 2.5, maybe 3 years, despite the belief, despite the assessment that things are going to continue to be quite slow, you should stay put, right? But if you are someone who can afford to stay put only for 6 months, 9 months, and all your calculations are based on a blockbuster recovery happening in 9 months, 12 months or so, I would caution you against that line of thinking. If that means that you should probably think about getting out of that asset, I think that might be a good alternative to consider. Now, I'm no wealth manager. I'm not good at asset management planning. But what I can say for sure is that these are very difficult times, especially if you've got a big debt running on your asset, right? If you are someone who's not sitting on top of a lot of liquidity, right? If you cannot afford to even keep the lights on for the next 1.5, 2 years or so, it's going to be an uphill recovery task. And if you can't stay put for 2 years or so, you should look at your alternate options today. If you can stay put, for sure, on the other side of this, this industry will do well. And you should be bullish on the long-term prospects.
One of the things that we've heard is, and it remains to be seen, logically it seems it's right, intuitively it seems like it's right, that more business will move from unbranded to branded hotels. So in India, which is usually a trust deficit society, with COVID, that trust deficit is going to increase about health, safety, and hygiene. And more travelers would prefer to stay in a branded hotel like Treebo versus unbranded or independent hotel. With that, I wanted to ask you my next question. How does Fibo differentiate itself as a soft brand or a managed brand versus other hotels in this category?
Do you mean other independent hotels? Or
Other branded hotels, but soft brands. You have Fab, you have Oyo, you have Signet. So, what is the Treebo value proposition which asset owners should understand and come to you?
See, I think people tend to, bracket everything below a certain price point into a single segment called the budget segment, right? But I think the budget segment itself is comprised of multiple subsegments. So commonly you would say that anything that's selling for less than, let's say, 3,500 rupees, 4,000 rupees per room night, you would typically qualify as a budget segment. But if you peel the onion further, if you kind of cut it even more finely, there are subsegments within that as well, right? So relative to some of the brands that you mentioned, we operate in the 1,000 to 3,000 rupees segment. We typically don't operate in the 3,000 to 4,000 rupees segment, right? Where a lot of the brands like Lemon Tree, Ibis, Ginger, I think even Signet, etc., they tend to be in that segment. And we are also not actively operating in the below 1,000 rupees segment, right? That is a segment, for example, in which Oyo does really well. I mean, almost 2/3 of their properties at all points in time will be in the below 1,000 rupees segment. We typically don't operate in that segment. So within budget also, I would say we are somewhat of a premium budget brand than some of the others. And I think the other big difference is, again, not pinpointing to specific players, but I think for us, the focus has been significantly higher on guest experience and the experience of our asset owners than on scaling at a rapid pace, which has been the focus for some of the other players in the market. We have been clear that, like I said at the beginning of this chat itself, that we think about things with a long-term focus in mind, and we don't believe that scaling very, very rapidly here and now creates any sustainable advantage or a foundation for you for the long run. Rather, what helps is to create true capabilities, true assets, which for us, the biggest one has been our ability to deliver a good guest experience. So if you look at third-party customer ratings, if you look at TripAdvisor, Booking.com ratings, etc., we consistently come out at the top of the table in terms of our customer ratings and rankings. I would say that is the biggest differentiator. And you're absolutely right that, as travel starts resuming gradually, and even after, let's say, a vaccination process has been carried out, I think customers now going forward are going to be extremely careful about the choice they make with their hotel, and would definitely prefer a branded property, particularly a brand that they have experienced, which has good customer feedback, compared to properties which they are not familiar with.
Sid, what are some of the health and safety measures you're taking to build confidence?
So, we have launched actually a pretty elaborate program called Treebo Hygiene Shield, wherein we are we have completely followed all the WHO guidelines and then some more in terms of some of the things that that we are doing. Apurva, would it be possible for me to briefly share my screen? I can quickly give you a glimpse of.
Absolutely, you can just share screen and.
You'll need to enable it. I think it's disabled by the host.
Yeah. Karmresh, if you could enable share screen, please.
Yeah, already done that. I think you should be able to do that now, Sidharth.
Can you see my screen? Okay, so we've launched this program called Treebo Hygiene Shield, where we are taking a whole bunch of that we deliver, safe experience. So, in terms of screening of the guests at the time of entering the hotel, disinfection of the luggage with, of course, the guest, with the right coming in for checking, making the check-in, check-out completely, contactless by moving things like registration card, room selection, etc., to pre-check-in on the customer's mobile. All the staff wearing masks and gloves while dealing with the customers. Use of Arogya Setu app, both for the customer as well as for the staffs, and masks, the guest is not carrying them themselves. Like I said, contactless check-in and just a quick verification by just showing it from a distance that the ID same as what has been uploaded at the time of doing a remote check-in. Providing us to check at the use it while going through the lift and through the stairs, etc., and handling the doors. The guest escort has been changed, where the luggage will be delivered after the guest has reached his or her room, and the staff will maintain distance. Elevators and all common areas will be sanitized again and again. Even the room service will be done through a distance. The beverage tray will be sanitized. The high touch points will be cleaned frequently with the right disinfectant solutions. So these are some of the things that we have already started implementing. And in terms of course, it's easy to define standards. The important thing is to drive compliance against those standards. So we are doing all of that by having a strict process of audits, where people from Treebo visit these properties regularly and do a thorough audit against all of these COVID-related protocols. And every property is assigned a score. And on the basis of that score, every property on our website will soon have a silver, gold, or a platinum hygiene sheet mentioned against their name, right? So that the user will know at the time of booking itself that, okay, I'm booking a property which is actually a platinum on safety and hygiene. And that becomes, a driver for the asset owners also to maintain good standards.
So that brings me to the next question, and thank you for queuing it up. Do you think you'll be able to drive a higher pricing for platinum hotels, or do you think, and what's your pricing strategy post-COVID? Because you have to focus on recovery, you have to focus on the segment you operate in, and your costs are going up because of all these things you're doing. So perishable cost, social distancing, maybe keeping rooms free. Would love to get your perspective on this.
See, I think there will be two, when it comes to pricing, there will be two forces acting against each other, or two concepts rather acting against each other. One is the fact that, strictly speaking, whatever demand comes in these times should technically be inelastic demand. What that means is that demand is coming despite all the restrictions on travel, despite it being still somewhat unsafe to travel. That demand is coming, which means that the use case for that demand is really a critical one. Whether it's corporates who are putting up their employees for a long stay or from hotel purpose, whether it is people who are isolating themselves before they meet their families, etc., etc. All of these use cases are where people definitely need to stay. It's not a discretion for them. It's something that they have to do, right? So, strictly speaking, there should not be too much pressure to reduce prices for this kind of a demand, because the demand is not going to go away, right? Even if you were to sell at higher prices. But the other force that is going to counteract and will eventually overpower this one is obviously this massive race to the bottom that will happen amongst all hotels and all hotel chains, right? Where everyone is very, very keen to sell. Everyone is desperate to put heads on the beds, right? And what that will mean is that, the 5-star hotel will sell at 3-star prices, 3-star hotel at 2-star prices. The 2-star chains will sell at the prices of an independent hotel in the 2-star segment, and so on. And even though unfortunately there should not have been a price erosion at this time, but I think there will be at once. I do expect prices to be depressed because of this race to bottom that will happen, with everyone trying to get whatever little demand they can manage. We have already had situations, you won't believe this, where a 5-star chain has managed to take away one of our clients.
Wow. Which would usually go for 8, 9,000, 10,000.
Exactly. I mean, that room you would typically get for, let's say, even if I apply the biggest discount slabs, right, you will not get a room in that hotel for less than 7,000 rupees. And they offered rooms to this client for 2,500 rupees. So,
Wow.
I think this is going to happen, and it's unfortunate, but this is going to happen till such a time as hotel companies and independent hotels, everyone starts to realize that there is no point getting this demand through the door, because you will see occupancy build up, yes, but your economics will just not add up. And obviously, you can't suddenly start diluting your brand standards. If anything, like you said, because of the COVID related protocols, you will only enhance those standards of cleanliness and hygiene and service, and that will mean higher costs. So and that realization will probably make people increase prices eventually. But yeah, I do expect in the near term prices to be depressed, and I guess we'll have to make our peace with that.
Very well said. And we are also recommending all our customers to hold on to prices, especially if you're a premier or a business hotel, because the race to bottom is not going to help anybody. Sid, how is your distribution strategy going to change? I'm assuming a lot of your business comes directly from your website and your app. And what is the role which you're now seeing OTAs, GDS, and wholesalers play? And is your distribution going to get wider and more diverse?
See, for us, that's always been the case, Apurva. We have, I firmly believe that if you're running a hotel, you should not over-index yourself on any one channel or the other only. You will need to diversify. You will need to get that one room night that might come from some foreign OTA, right? That you may not typically be doing much business with, and you might get that one room night from some small travel agent who you typically do only, let's say, 10 room nights in a month with, but it all adds up. And I think that is something that we will continue with. We multi-channel distribution engine. While it's true that about 30-35% of our business comes from our own website, our app, another 30-odd% comes from our corporate clients. But this mix can change going forward, and we are not worried about the mix of demand. We should just sell wherever possible. Wherever anything is selling, we should go and sell. It should be it's really, channel mix right now should be a second priority. Of course, unless there is a channel which is just extremely expensive, where it doesn't make sense to sell at all, which fortunately is not the case with us. You should sell. Distribution should be wide, for sure.
Sure. Sid, as a founder, co-founder, entrepreneur, while you are taking care of asset owners and customers, you also need to keep the motivation of employees high. And this is the perfect storm. So what are some of the things which you and your leadership team thought about and executed to keep the employee morale high?
No, absolutely, Purva. That's a subject which is very close to our hearts. And I would like to believe that over the last 5 years, this is one area where we have focused a lot on. And as I was mentioning, and I was talking about need for long-term focus, that development of your people and taking care of your people is indeed one of the things that plays out and pays dividend over a long time, and not immediately. And therefore, people sometimes tend to ignore it. I think in times like these, that agenda becomes even more important. If you think about the Maslow's need hierarchy, right, which really governs behavior of individuals, there is, their basic physiological needs, right? I mean, and then they have, of course, factualization, etc. I think what COVID has done is that there is a significant jolt to businesses as well as individuals in terms of the professional journey that they were on, right? Whether it is in terms of someone who was looking to get promoted and move to the next level in the organization, whether it is someone who was looking to get a big bonus and meet some financial need, whether it is in terms of people wanting to start a new business and fulfill their life's dream, whether it is someone who was looking to do something very charitable and wanted to devote their life's time to it, someone looking to travel extensively and go around the world and make your parents travel with you, or take your kids and show them the world, etc. A lot of these dreams, which comprise self-actualization, self-esteem in the Maslow's need hierarchy, have jolted by COVID because life has pretty much come to a standstill. And indeed, it's very hard to change that quickly because the crisis is not going away quickly. And you know already, in all our organizations, I guess everyone who's on the call today would have been forced to lay people off or furlough people, etc. Right? So we know that thousands and thousands of people have had their dreams getting shattered in front of their eyes. The next level, however, in the need hierarchy is something that we can do something about. And that need has also been severely affected, which is the need to belong, the need to connect, the need to feel that you are part of a community, that you are part of a broader organization, right? And I think that is a need that as employers, all of us need to focus on, because when you are working from home, when you're not seeing your colleagues, when you're not seeing your clients, when your business is very low, it is very easy and it is very obvious for people to feel disconnected, right? That important, I mean, everyone's professional workplace, their day-to-day occupations always play a role in defining them as individuals, because they have their affinity part of it. As employees, we have tried on together for the organized to stay connected with each other, for people to feel that there is still a company that is looking after them, that they still have their friends at workplace who are accessible, that they can still connect with all of their other colleagues around meaningful, relevant engagements. And even though they may not be coming to office, that connect has not disappeared, right? That I think is critical for people's mental well-being and happiness in these times. And therefore, towards that end, we have launched a whole bunch of initiatives through which we are very actively connected with our people who are spread all over the country. Right, and of course, technology is coming to be of very good use. So, for example, every week, as founders, the three of us conduct a talk for the entire organization, and it's not about business. We just pick 2 topics of current relevance. We call it reflections of the week, right? And we will just talk about those 2 topics. It could be related to our industry, or it could be something completely, unrelated. But as long as it's of interest and it's of relevance. For example, one of the topics we recently spoke about was Geo's massive fundraisers, etc. Right? So we do this webinar so that everyone in the company gets to see us. Right? They do associate a sense of confidence, a sense of belonging with the leadership. So we make sure that they get to see us once every week. We are doing learning courses called Treebo Kaksha, where every week again there is a seminar conducted on one topic related to our business, where the corresponding functional head will come and conduct a webinar for everyone else. So that way sales guys get to learn about revenue management, revenue guys get to learn about ops, so on. And so there's this cross training that is happening. We are running an event called Treebo Olympics, where the entire company has been divided into these 10 or 12 teams, and there are fun games and activities, cooking competitions, fitness challenges that are happening, that people are participating in, so on and so forth, right? So there are a lot of these activities that we are conducting on Zoom, on Slack, but the focus is on making sure that we stay connected. I think that's the most important thing. Apurva, I can't hear you. You're on mute.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Saying that, I've always been very impressed with Treebo's focus on innovation. And Events High and Hotel Super are two examples where you've broken the mold, and Events High was an acquisition. So how do you institutionalize innovation in an industry where it's really not known to be a out there breakthrough innovative industry? And how do you get everybody configured on that, excited about innovation? And how are both these initiatives doing?
So innovation is indeed core to our DNA, Apurva. We as a founding team don't come from the domain, right? We don't come from hotel management background, and yet we started a hotel company. So it was clear for us from day one that we will need to take a first principles approach towards building this business, because there were no established models that we could have just replicated. And I think that thinking has continued since then till now, where we are a company that deeply cares about people being innovative, that people coming up with creative solutions to problems, for people to have a solution-oriented mindset and not a problem-oriented mindset. And indeed, you use the right word, that you need to institutionalize this belief for people to truly follow your cue. And we have done that by actually making it a company value. So we have got these 10 values for the company, and one of them, which we actually evaluate our people on, right, is called obligation to invent. And what that means is that everyone in the company, no matter how senior or junior you might be, everyone in the company has to be innovative. And every 6 months, you will be asked the question, what did you do in the last 6 months that was truly innovative? What creative solutions did you come up with? So there is that expectation from people. And the second part of it is there's expectation, but there also has to be enablement. I think the biggest difference probably between a young startup like Treebo and probably large and established organizations is that we encourage failure. We encourage people to take risks, and we don't come down heavily on them when they make mistakes, because that is a prerequisite for being innovative. You can't expect people to be innovative when you are going to punish them or intimidate them or penalize them when they do something wrong, despite the fact that they had the right intentions. So I think that is, failure is something that we encourage. We have another value which says fail fast, fail smart. So as long as you are getting some learnings from your failures, it's a good thing to fail. And once people realize that they are able to make mistakes, they feel much more comfortable coming up with innovative ideas. So that's how we do it. These two initiatives, like you said, Events High and Superhero. Superhero in particular is doing really well. Like I said, that's our SaaS business. It's still young, very young, but it has tremendous potential. We feel that the world of hotel technology can really offer some amazing opportunities. So as part of Hotel Superhero, we are building solutions which are intuitive, very simple, and very affordable, and all entirely cloud-based. And therefore, all the technology that so far we had built for our business, we are now giving it out in a SaaS package to third-party hotels. So it's early days, but it looks very exciting.
And what are the components of the technology? So is it a rate shopper, a channel manager? What are the components?
So at the heart of it, it is the property management system. So PMS, but it's an integrated product itself. We are not thinking about it as because we realize the budget market is as well simple, not achieved if you have too many components running around. Integrated in terms of it has a PMS, POS, a CRS, and an integrated housekeeping module, integrated preventive maintenance module, those kind of things.
And a non-Treebo hotel can also use it and subscribe to it.
That's right.
That's great to know, and I think a lot of hotels will find that useful. So Sid, we are nearly out of time. So I wanted the audience to get a sneak peek into your personality as well, and the more human side of a leader. So I'm going to ask you some rapid fire rounds, and feel free to tell us whatever is top of your mind. Are you ready for that?
Sure, let's try that.
So winning the Wimbledon or winning a Cricket World Cup? Which one would you choose?
Cricket World Cup.
Excellent. Long weekend holiday, golf at a resort, visiting an art museum, or just like partying hard or staying at home?
None of the above. Spending time with my two little kids.
Lovely. I had a baby daughter recently, so I can completely identify with that. What's your drink of choice? Water, wine, espresso, smoothie, whiskey, or something non-alcoholic?
I know that work from home has really converged our evenings and afternoons, but I'm trying to still kind of keep work away from leisure. So during work, it's espresso, and during leisure, it's certainly whiskey on the rocks.
Dogs or cats?
Neither. Humans. Not a pet fan. Apurva, I lost you.
Next travel destination, beach, mountain, or beaches?
Apurva, I lost you. Yeah, I can hear you now.
So what's your next travel destination?
The choices are?
Beaches or mountains?
Oh, mountains, for sure.
So Sid, you are a hotelier now, and between McKinsey, Myntra, Tata Motors, and all your life, you would have traveled to many places. Which is the best hotel you have stayed in anywhere? And what makes it so special for you?
I think I would say it's indeed a very hard choice. There's some gorgeous hotels I've had the opportunity to stay in. My favorite, probably the one that immediately comes to mind, is a hotel I stayed at in Santorini in Greece. It was a small boutique hotel called Hotel Enigma, if I remember the name correctly. Gorgeous property, and what I loved about it was the splendid views it offered of the caldera, and the beautiful layout. I mean, the room was kind of in two steps. There was an elevated loft where the bed was, and then there's this living area at the bottom. Very tiny, very cozy. It had a nice Romeo Juliet window which opens to the views of the caldera, and of course very, very friendly and lovable staff. So yeah, that's the one I'm immediately reminded of when you ask me that question.
Sid, which is a recent book you have read in the last 1 year, which has really impressed you? It struck a chord with you, and what What's your learning or takeaway from that, which you can share with the audience?
I won't say last 1 year, but I'll probably just widen that and talk about maybe one that has really kind of touched a chord with me somewhere. I think it's the Everything Store, the book on Amazon. Fascinating book, and really it's less about the book, more about the Amazon story itself. But the book obviously does a fantastic job of bringing that story out, and we don't really get to know about Amazon enough from just their news announcements, etc. But it all kind of came together in that book. And I think when I spoke earlier about long-term thinking, I don't think there is any company on the planet which epitomizes long-term thinking the way Amazon does. And they're on building for the long term. Obsessed Jeff Bezos is with the day one mentality. That kind of came out quite well from that book, and I think it has influenced how I think about our business. So would highly recommend that book, and it's a very popular. Many of you have read it already. But yeah, the Everything Store.
Thank you for a wonderful 1 hour. Time flew, and I learned some amazing things, and I'm sure the audience feels the same way. We wish you and Treebo and all the Treebo ecosystem all the best for recovery and an amazing year ahead. I know I'm looking forward to meeting you. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I want to tell you, Radian is there with you and the Treebo ecosystem. Wish you all the best and have a great weekend ahead.
Thank you very much for having me, Apurva, and all the best to everyone who's listening in. Stay safe and good luck for recovery of business.
Thank you. And to our audience on the call, we will continue the series of leadership conversations. So look forward to the next one with you.